All right, this is worksheet 3.2, which is an introduction to absolute value inequalities. We're going to start with this first section, 1 through 10. We're considering this function and we're using a graphing calculator to graph the function. So here's the graphing calculator screen where I can enter the function. Absolute value of x plus 3 and then minus 2. If you don't have a graphing calculator and you want to graph with using an application either on your phone or a website, a really good one is www.desmos.com. This is a website. It can also be downloaded as an app on the iPhone, and there are a lot of other applications out there for both iPhones and Android smartphones. So if I graph this function, let's go ahead and just sketch the graph over here using some of the key points on our graph. So we can see here we have the vertex of this graph at -3, -2. And a y-intercept at 1. So we can tell the slope of this line here is +1. So if you want to plot a few more points, you can. And on this side, we have the same slope, but negative. So I'm going to do a slope of -1 on this side. All right, we're also going to graph the function g of x on the same axis. So going back to my y equals screen, I'm going to do y equals 3 and graph that as well. And we should already know what the graph of y equals 3 looks like, but you can verify using your calculator. So question number 3 is asking, when is f of x equal to g of x? So f of x equals g of x at these 2 points, here and over here. So here x is equal to 2. And over here, we've gone off the graph here, so let's go ahead and just check on the calculator where we're at. I'm going to hit the trace button and click over until I get to this point, just so we can estimate what point that is. So it looks like we're at about -8, +3. So x is equal to -8. And in number 4, we're showing our solution to number 3 on the number line below the graph. So I'm going to just plot a solution at +2 and at -8. Okay, on number 5, we're being asked, when is f of x greater than g of x? So f of x is greater than g of x in a couple of spots here.
Attention students, Angeles Cuadras and Grecia Gamboa, please report to the guidance office. Angeles Cuadras and Grecia Gamboa, please report to the guidance office.
All right, so in this region here, we can see that f of x is greater than g of x. This area over here, f of x is also greater than g of x. So when is that happening? Well, we can see here that's happening when x is greater than 2. Or over here when x is less than -8. So we're going to color the graph and the number line to illustrate this answer. So you can just use a highlighter or a color just so that it shows up. Over here we can see f of x is greater than g of x. Over here we can also see that f of x is greater than g of x. On the number line, we can just show here that x is greater than 2 or x is less than -8. Okay, when is f of x or greater than or equal to g of x? Well, note here this was just greater than. Now we're greater than or equal to. So in number 5, technically here, this should be an open circle, so I'm just going to kind of draw over it here to show that it was not actually equal to, but just greater than or less than. Here, if f of x is greater than or equal to g of x, we need to include the value x equals 2. So x is greater than or equal to 2. And we need to include the value x equals -8. So x is less than or equal to -8. How does that change your number line? Well, it changes this value of 2 and negative 8 to a closed circle. Instead of an open circle. All right, on number 10, or I'm sorry, on number 9, now we're actually going to solve the inequality f of x is greater than g of x. So f of x is given, g of x was also given. If we're solving this inequality, let's look at what steps we would take if we didn't have the graph in front of us to help us out. So algebraically, the first step to solving this inequality is to isolate the absolute value. In order to do that, I need to add 2 to both sides. So absolute value of x plus 3 is greater than or equal to 5. Okay, we're then going to take that and split it into 2 inequalities. The first inequality, we need to drop the absolute value sign and rewrite it exactly the same way it appears, just without the absolute value. The second inequality, we're going to rewrite the left side.
Attention students, Bruno Sanchez to the Business and Activities. Bruno Sanchez, please go to Business and Activities.
Okay, for this second inequality, we're going to leave the left side unchanged, switch the inequality sign, and make the 5 a negative. So we need to remember those 2 things, switching the inequality sign and switching this to the opposite. We're going to then solve those 2 inequalities. So x is greater than or equal to 2, x is less than or equal to negative 8. And note how we got the exact same answer that we got using the graph. So x is greater than or equal to 2, x is less than or equal to negative 8. How does your solution to number 9 relate to the problems you solved above? It was the exact same problem, it's just that we did it algebraically instead of graphically.